Want action and adventure? Crave tales of courage? Want to come along for thrills and spills? Naturally, we all love it, at least the idea of it. Now, today you're going to hear from two dead set Far North Queensland legends, and I am pumped. I've really been looking forward to this one. Rob Parry, extreme sportsman and filmmaker. Rebecca Scott, extreme sportswoman and general creative. Both of these people have amazing bios that we'll kind of go into a little bit later, but they're amazing people. Welcome to Northern Vibe. If we've never met, I'm Matthew Maloney, the host and founder of Northern Vibe. Northern Vibe is about sharing stories. This is where curiosity is cultivated. This is where discussions are held with interesting, informed people. Now, today I have two people who are actually living their dreams. They refuse to allow the greatest barrier to anyone's success, fear, to overwhelm them. And before I go any further, please like and share. We're growing, but we really need your help to keep up momentum. And we're getting some really interesting locations from where people are listening from. So hello, Solomon Islands. Great to have you on board. So please, in the comments page, tell us where you're from. Make any comments. We're getting some great suggestions from the comments page. And if you've got any questions, I'm free. I'm quite happy to put them towards our guests. Now, these comments include suggestions for guests. So nominate someone you would like to see on Northern Vibe. Put it on the comments page or contact me through the Facebook page. Now, we always have a mention in dispatches to a charity that's doing great work. And this week, Beck nominated the Australian Wildlife Conservancy. So just let me bring it up. Now, they do some fantastic work. It's all around conservation work. What they do is basically they purchase land and they look after animals. Now, if you jump on this website here, it's got all the things that you can do, how to contact them, and how you can assist, how you can donate, and generally what you can do to help this excellent charity. And big thanks to Beck for putting me onto it. Now, about my guests, Beck Scott. She's a parachutist. She's a base jumper. She's a steampunk. She's a passionate costumer. She's a creative. She's a visionary arts event producer. She's founder of createmore.com and a general creative. The best thing is she's an overcomer of personal fear, and I'm really looking forward to chatting to her about that. Rob Parry, skydiver, paraglider, wingsuiter, base jumper, ice climber, motorcycling enthusiast, builder, boat captain, and owner of Sunrise Retreat. So we've got some really interesting people here today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hello. How are you?
Rob.
G'day, Matt. How are you doing today, mate? Nice to be on board with you. G'day, Beck. How are you?
I'm awesome.
And let me tell you, having spoken to both of these people leading up to the interview, they're both awesome. It's not just Beck. I can tell all the listeners that. I've been really looking forward to chatting to you to both of you. You came on recommendation, so a quick observation that I really value your listener input, and a very big thanks to the legendary Josh Bond for this lead. So thanks very much for introducing me to these people. Now, it's difficult to know where to start, so we'll do the polite thing and ladies go first. Rebecca, I'll get you to tell us about your skydiving career. When did you start and why did you start?
Okay, well, I was 20 years old and I watched the movie Terminal Velocity, and it has a big skydiving scene in it. And I went back home from Sydney where I'd watched that film, and I booked in at the local skydiving place that I found in the phone book, being that it was in the 1995, and I basically just went out to the drop zone and I fell in love with it before I'd even done my first jump. At that time, it wasn't that common that you paid for your entire course at one go, and I went up to the guy that you hand over your money to and said, how much to do the whole 10 jumps? And I hadn't even done one jump yet. So it was one of those driven moments where you just kind of know that it's going to change your life. And and it was amazing. And the thing that was so cool about it was and it still is, it's called Lower Light, and it's in South Australia, and it was a club run drop zone. So it meant that it's not run by a business, so it's a committee run operation. And it was kind of like having and this probably doesn't sound that good, but it kind of like having a BNS ball every Saturday night after doing some skydives. So you kind of had a farm to drive around and go do whatever you wanted. And it was this kind of this experience of freedom that I'd never been around. And it was really the collective nature of it that I absolutely loved. And this is part of the reason I've invited Rob here, is he's someone who embodies that kind of skydiver that I met when I first started jumping all those years ago. So it was just a very, someone will see you having trouble learning how to pack your own equipment or something, and they'll show you what to do. And it's never a sort of egomaniac situation. And yeah, so it changed my life. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the fact that I chose to do that, and just go out there. And the thing I can clearly remember from the first jump, besides the door opening of the plane and this wind just hitting my face, which I didn't expect. I sort of wasn't expecting. I mean, I've been in plenty of planes, but I'd never stuck my head out of one that's traveling at 100 knots forward. And so when you go out into that wind, and then you just like, so I remember I was conscious enough of that, but and probably checked out a little bit with a bit of freaked out moment when I first exited the plane. But once I'd opened that parachute safely and I'm flying around, and I remember still to this day, 25 years later, just going, wow, that was so quiet. And it's so, you're alone up there, and you're there on your own. Oh my God, I've got to fly this thing to the ground. But it was just so beautiful. And I still remember that to this day. So that's the start of it.
Wow. And see, I've got to say, I think that is uber cool, because you kind of do associate the sport with a whole bunch of sky guides who have, this extreme confidence and this extreme, idea of wanting to be the alpha dog and stuff there too. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. And before we jump on to Rob, because I'm going to ask him exactly the same question, I'm going to do a really quick, and I know this is one of your, whoops, well, this in that. It's not your first day. That's you hanging out of an airplane.
Yes, it is.
So
yeah,
is that one of your early jumps, or?
No, that was probably about not that long ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it looks like a high altitude jump too.
No, oh look, it would be about 14,000 feet. So that's out of a plane called a Caravan, Cessna Caravan, which is what we do have up at the drop zone in North Queensland. So anyone who wants to learn how to skydive can jump out of one of those planes.
Beck's,
get that same photo.
Matt, Beck's making that photo look good. Where she's hanging there, the plane's doing about sort of 130, 150 knots. So she's getting about 220 kilometers wind sort of flying past her. And it does take a little bit of upper body strength to sort of hold on to that outside picture rail. So big smiles, she's making it look good.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, and I mean this in a totally appropriate way. She's a pretty lady. She'd make pretty much anything look good. But you tell us about you, Parry, Sky God. You, like, how did you get into this?
Mate, I like I suppose a lot of people of our generation watched the movie Point Break when you were young, and you sort of saw Keanu Reeves and the boys doing a bit of skydiving, amongst a whole bunch of other things, and that kind of got me into it. But essentially, in 1995, my brother had a motorbike accident, broke his back, and ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. So he sort of had a time frame of about 2 years where he could do skydiving before his bones sort of started getting a bit too brittle, apparently. So we went and did a tandem together at Toogoolawah down in Brisbane. He was in front of me on a tandem. I was behind him in a tandem. He got out in front and quite a distance apart. And then they had a malfunction in their parachute and had to cut away and then go to their second. And so I free fell past him and opened up with the guy I was jumping with and touched the ground first. I was like, yeah, how good is that? Not many people get to experience a malfunction, I suppose, throughout their lifetime. Really, some people are pretty lucky to not have it at all. But that's essentially what got me into it. And then I had a big span of time where I didn't. That was my first skydive, and it was obviously on front of somebody else. And then some years later, I'm standing in Port Douglas, looking across to a big monolith rock that stands out of the rainforest up here. And I thought, I want to base jump off that one day. And that was kind of how I got into skydiving. I wrote a letter to a guy in New Zealand called Chuck Berry, who's a funny name, but pretty sort of famous dude in a whole bunch of different circles, but he's a base jumper as well. And he took the time to write a letter back to me saying, this is what you got to do. Basically, go and get yourself a couple of hundred skydives and get into base jumping. And I remember booking a ticket overseas to go do my base course in the States because it's a lot safer to learn on a forgiving object. And, he said, you've got to get at least 100 skydives. And I got 99. I was like, well, it's just going to have to do, and then flew off to the States to learn how to jump off bridges pretty much.
So there's so many questions. There are so many questions that raises in my mind. So your brother's in a wheelchair. Oh my God, that's terrible. And the first thing you thought after this tragic accident is, I got to throw, my brother and I need to throw each other out of planes. That's the first thought that crossed your mind? What? Right.
Well, I guess it was to a certain extent. My parents didn't tell me about the accident for about 3 or 4 months. I was up north, my family down in Brisbane. I was running a parasailing business up here behind boats, not off cliffs. And they actually didn't tell me for about 3 or 4 months because they kind of knew what I'd do, and that is fly down there and sort of help out. But at the time when you're sitting in a spine ward, there's not much you can do for the first 3 or 4 months, So when I did find out, I flew down there, and then I guess it was a way of just trying to put some fun into his life. Since then, he's gone on to play tennis and slalom ski and wakeboard and do a whole bunch of things. So yeah, he's pretty. He enjoys himself.
What a legend! And my my cousin runs the spinal unit down at the P&A. So he's he'll probably tune into this. I don't think he's watching it live, looking at that, but very good chance he'll tune in. So g'day, Rob Maloney. You're a legend, and he may very well have looked after. When did your brother have his accident?
The PA was where he went. But his accident was 95, I think.
Rob was still in his training at that stage. But wow, oh my God, small world. So what is we've already gone off on a tangent because I've got these questions, but so what is the difference between jumping, because jumping off something solid, which is a base, and jumping out of, I wouldn't imagine there'd be any major difference in technique or anything like that. Clearly there is.
There's a lot of different, I guess, parachute types, and you kind of set a base jumping rig to open within a certain parameter. So you can set it to open with 100 feet, 1,000 feet, and you vary that according to the height of the object. But base basically stands for bridges, antennas, spans, and earth. So I guess once you've completed those 4 structures, you are considered to be a base jumper. But really, if you can jump off anything with a base rig, you're doing all right. So you don't have to complete the 4 structures, but that's actually what base stands for as an acronym. Bridges, antennas, spans, and earth.
I'll drop in here. I am just ACE. I never did the building, unfortunately, which is, and the big difference I found learning how to be a base jumper at when I'd already done over 2,000 skydives, not like Mr. 99 here. who I will say is definitely way more coordinated than me. But I went and learnt off the Prine Bridge, which I think was probably the same one that Rob went to in the US. So this is a bridge that's legal, and I think it still is. And the big difference I found is it's a stationary object, and there's such a difference to launching out of something that, or off something with the same body position, and it's because you're going into no movement, and you are the movement. Your body is building up the speed. When you jump out of a plane, you're already traveling forward, as Rob alluded to with my exit photo before. You're already traveling at a certain speed, so you're hitting the wind of that speed. But when you jump off a fixed object, you're generally just jumping into the never, just like when you launch into a pool of water or something and do a bomb. It's that sort of dead air, as they call it. And I definitely had some interesting moments with that, particularly in Switzerland, where I went quite vertical, and you don't really want to necessarily go with your head towards the ground. You'd prefer it with this being your head here. And so it's a different feeling.
Matt,
Sorry, can I really quickly just so you don't want to jump like that, Beck, is what you're telling me?
No, but
that's what not to do. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, would you like to see a quick building jump?
Yes.
Footage.
Yes.
Here I go making this work for you, but this is a bit of an invitation.
Hang on, you got to share first, bro.
She's
okay. Let's start that again. So on this thing, where are we? Share again.
So share screen, the green.
Share screen, gotcha. Boom. All right, so that'll get me in to be able to play it. Excuse my computer illiteracy.
That's fine, mate. This is,
all right. Can you guys see that?
Yes, we can. So hit the play button. No way.
So yeah, that's a bit of a shot from KL Tower.
Dude, like I've had. Yeah, well, the analogy I want to make about how quick that was, it's not something that I can say in public, but that was really, really quick indeed. So, I've had really, really quick things that have lasted longer than that, and that didn't go very long at all. So
it's funny what Beck was saying before. The most important thing with, I guess, a base exit is your body position, because you need to throw yourself into a stable position. So I guess with that sport, probably the most integral part of it is really that first couple of seconds when you leave something. But
right.
It's definitely good fun.
Mate, could you stop sharing, and I'll just stop your screen share, and we'll jump in.
Yeah.
And mate, a big aloha to Chris McLaughlin who's listening from Kings Beach, Caloundra. Aloha. So yeah.
We want to give a big hello to the Solomon Islands, the Solomons. Thank you. Thanks for supporting us.
How cool is that?
The Solomon Islands are always friendly.
Yeah, that's it. Like, man, some of the places I get, for a little while there too, I haven't had and obviously I don't know precisely who it is, but I had a couple of listeners in California. They haven't tuned in to the last couple, but that was kind of cool. Look, a lot of this is obviously about testing yourself and pushing yourself beyond your limits. So, Beck, could I get you to talk about that, to that side of things, and then I'll get Rob to comment.
Well, I think one of the things that, for me, having got to an age where I'm in my mid-40s now, and I have, because of being involved in skydiving and doing only 32 base jumps, but at that time doing a couple that really challenged me, really set the absolute bar for my level of fear. And one of them is me launching into the darkness in the photo that promoted this talk. And it was a climb that challenged me for the whole time. And yeah, this photo here. And the reason it's dark is because I took so long getting up to the exit point, as they call it, which is this nice little rock here. It's an 800-foot cliff in between Phoenix and Los Angeles on the Arizona side of the border. And it was such a challenge for me to get up the top of that rock. I wasn't a very good climber, and I really wasn't confident in that way. And I can honestly tell you that the jump was the easy part. I was relieved to be getting off this thing because there was no way I was going to climb back down. And the thoughts of Homer Simpson rolling down a cliff in a comedic way, with it being actually me into all the cactus and the rocks, and it was horrifying. And for 2 hours, I was really, quite honestly, scared beyond my wits. But by the time I got to the top, that had dissipated, and I was more confident. I'd learnt how to free climb in that amount of time. I'd actually got better at it. And where I'm going with that is it actually set the bar for me for other challenges in life, whether that be going out on a limb and trying a new business, or setting up several different events that have got no precedent, are not necessarily going to work. But it's a kind of and to get woo-woo, it's a trusting of the universe, and just allowing one step after another to guide you, and to trust that you're going to be fine. And I've done that with travel overseas, and with moving to different parts of Australia or whatever. And I find I think what it is being super present, and just you are super present at those times when you are just concentrating on getting up that cliff and jumping off that cliff, and then opening your parachute and landing, so that you're not going to hit the great big dark shape, which is actually a big cactus that you don't want to hug, because you're going to, it's not something to cuddle. So it's one of those moments where you're just so super present. And I think that's a guiding thing for me, is just to be super present and to actually really trust where you're going, and that you're going there for a reason, and not overthink it. Just go with it. What do you think about that, Rob? I mean, you've done way more freaky things than me.
I think fear is awesome. I think fear is one of those fantastic things. You know, it brings so many different emotions with it. You got excitement and joy and failure, being scared. I mean, it presents a lot of different scenarios. So I think it should be something that's embraced, really. I don't think everybody's, I guess, gripped by fear in everyday life, but, you know, you get scared by certain things that propel you to do better at things. And I guess a lot of fear is familiarity too. Like, take a classic example. I've done a lot of mucking around with sharks, but the first time I saw a shark, I crapped myself. I couldn't get me out of there faster. After watching Jaws as a kid, I couldn't even go in the bath. And I'm not kidding. Like, it scared actually scared a generation of people out of the ocean, I'm pretty sure, Jaws. But, you know, if you go back the next day and you jump in the water with a shark, you still crap yourself, but it takes a second or two longer to get out. And so it's just a familiarization of getting in the water with the shark each day, and learning the beast, and learning, I guess, everything about that. And that's pretty pertinent to any sort of sport, really. You know, the more you do it, the more familiar you become with it, and that kind of propels you to seek more enjoyment. It actually does get to a stage where it gets quite stupid, though, because then you find yourself pushing yourself harder and harder for sort of more excitement, which can get a bit dangerous. And then, to be completely honest, sometimes you get a bit stupid and you add music to that. And then you realize you should probably take the music away, because it's pretty crazy enough without the music. So it depends where you go with that. But yeah, I think fear is a great thing. I think it keeps you alive. It makes you focused on doing things as well.
Yeah, there seems to be that common theme of focus. And if I can get a little bit Yoda here, it's, you know, that scene in Star Wars where Yoda gets up Luke and goes, you know, you never concentrate. You're always thinking about the past, the future. You're concentrating on these other things, you know. Stick in the moment. Concentrate on where you are and what you are doing. And the simple fact is, you think of almost any activity you do, your mind is half somewhere else. You know what I mean? You're always thinking a little bit in the future, or what am I going to do with this? But to be able to focus totally on this one thing is well, kind of zen, I suppose. Look, do you have, like, Rob, you've pretty much outlined what your kind of technique is for overcoming fear, which is, as I understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to boil the frog. It's like, okay, I'm scared of that. I'm going to expose myself to it. And I can handle this much, and I'll come back the next day a little bit more, which is precisely what psychologists do, incidentally, with any phobia that they want to overcome. And I had a friend, without going into precise details, Copper actually, who had this really, really big phobia. And that person got over that phobia by boiling the frog, just exposing themselves to it a little bit every day. Do you have another technique as well, Beck? Or is that pretty much it?
It's just a one step after another. That, I mean, it's not that I've conquered absolutely everything, but it really is. It's just make it a more simplified thing. And I think this is a technique that's used too for people getting over anxiety or whatever, but it's just about simplify it. And so when I was getting up that cliff and I had to hand my equipment up to these guys before doing a sort of a 2-meter free climb, it was just that 2-meter free climb. It wasn't the entire thing. And oh my God, I've got to get all the way there and looking up and seeing how much further I had to go. It was, okay, this step, then that step. And that's how it's worked for me. But I'm quite instinctual about my general life, and I think it's just dumbing it down and making it less of a mountain, and going for what's the easy, attainable, simple next step.
Compartmentalizing it a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Look, you've articulated that. You've articulated how it affected your life really well. In other areas, Rob, has you been able to recognise and overcome this fear? I suppose you could actually call it the cultivation of courage, really. Has this ability to be able to cultivate courage, has it affected other parts of your life, like besides jumping off stuff?
I think for sure. You know, it makes you want to explore and try different things. I mean, I guess the world wouldn't be where the world is without fear. If we didn't have great explorers and great adventurers and great identities in the past, then the world wouldn't be where the world is now. In terms of people accessing sports and doing sports and trying something that they're not familiar with or that they're scared by, the best thing you can do is pick up the phone. It doesn't matter what it is you want to do. If you pick up the phone, you've made the first effort in moving towards something. And like compartmentalizing fear, I guess you can't look at the overall cost of what it's going to cost you to do something, because it's never going to cost you that initially. It's going to take time and your thought and a bit of money, but that's over a period of time. So the most important thing you want to do if you want to do a sport, if you want to get interested in something, is pick up the phone, because the rest kind of just follows. I think it's pretty handy like that.
That is kind of really cool. Well, it's not kind of, it's really, really cool. But look, Rob, on that though, you know, chasing these thrills, mate, you've had some pretty big spills. Are you happy to talk about them or not really? Or
yeah, I don't mind. I get called rickety from a good friend of mine because I've had a few motorbike stacks, I've had a few base jumping stacks, had a few stacks in general. I think I've pretty much broken everything apart from my neck and my spine and my femur. I've managed to do everything else, my legs and head from back to front and nose quite a few times. I had this awesome motorbike crash once where whatever happened, a bone went through my nose and blocked off my sinus air spaces. So every time I blew my nose to get all the blood out, my eyeball popped out and rested on my cheek. And then as soon as I stopped blowing to my nose, the eyeball would go back. So I go to emergency and they check me out and they're like, sorry, we can't find anything wrong. You're good to go home. And I'm like, okay, we'll check this out. And so I did that and my eye popped out on my cheek and the woman was like, whoa, oh my God. She goes, hang on, just wait. And she goes, no, do it again. So then I do it again. And she's like, oh, whoa, okay, don't do that again. And then she goes and gets 5 or 6 people and comes back and goes, okay, do it again. And then I'm like, they go, whoa. That was funny. So yeah, I had some interesting ones, but
hey, yeah, have you got any happy snaps? And Jessica Lynn, I bet if you're listening, yeah, we'll show you these happy snaps. Jess would love this.
I'll find a happy snap at some stage. I didn't get one because I wasn't sure whether you want to see blood and gore, but yeah, I guess sometimes you take a spill, you know, but it only makes you the wiser.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave that comment well alone.
Actually, you, Matty, you working in the previous areas that you've worked in, I've been pulled out of a helicopter after a base jump went wrong. I had a trimalleolar fracture of the ankle, so I broke the tibia, the fibula, and the ankle, and had a massive dislocation of the foot. So it was cutting off circulation to the foot, obviously. And at that stage, I was at the bottom of about 195-foot cliff in the water, sort of thinking I could really do a chopper right now. And luckily, in the day and age that we live in, a chopper came to my rescue. So I have to thank people like yourself for that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wasn't paid. I was a volunteer. That's when I was up at TI. But no, thanks. So it was, you know, it's kind of like you. I love hanging out and stuff. I got to admit, I loved every second.
Mate, choppers are one of those excitable toys. Just quickly on another story of a friend that Beck knows, we were jumping at a 1,000-foot waterfall down the road here. On that day, he decided to go first. I wasn't quite ready when he went, but his parachute didn't open, and he hit the water from about 960 feet. He basically ripped his legs away from his pelvis, had an open book pelvic fracture, so split in half, separated his back from his pelvis. T5, facial injuries, blah, blah, blah. But in the video, it takes me about 1 minute and 50 seconds to, after his impact, for me to realize what's happened, finish my gearing up, get off, get in the water, get to him. How he kept swimming in that minute and 50 seconds, I have absolutely no idea, especially with the pelvic injuries that he had, involved also with massive hemorrhaging through the pelvis. But he died about 3 times on the way in the chopper back to the hospital. And then he was in an induced coma for about 9 or 10 days. And mate, he's back skydiving, walking, talking, no long-term injuries apart from some mental ones, which he had before. But yeah, it's interesting, you know, 200 people a year die falling off a 3-step ladder.
Yeah, that's right. Like, you know, the most dangerous place you can be, statistically speaking, is your home. Mind you, that's a bit of a, you know, that's just because you're there all the time. You know, there's a lot of things that distort that statistical fact. But yeah, no, you're quite right. Hey, I want to see some more footage.
What would you like to see some footage of? Do you want to see a shot from Baffin Island of a nice 3-way wingsuit?
Yes, I do.
So I'm not 100% sure whether this has been seen around the world. Oh, how do I move that?
This is a northern vibe first, ladies and gentlemen, is what Rob is trying to tell us right now. Where's Baffin Island?
Guys and girls, this is a wingsuit jump from Broad Peak, which is one of the biggest cliffs in Sam Ford Fjord in the Arctic Circle. I'm just going to pause that for a second, just to let you know, jumping in a wingsuit is like being wrapped in a full body condom. So when you're standing on the edge of these cliffs, everything you do pertains to how your jump's going to go. You want to be comfortable in a full body condom. But anyway, this is how it goes.
3, 2, 1.
Wow. No way. Look at that.
You can see, if you can hear me, there's a gentleman in front there. Back, that's actually Jomo in the black suit, front right. Just running down this ridge. You know, in wingsuits, you can get up to sort of 300 kilometers an hour. If things go wrong, a lot faster. But, you know, following this knife edge down, This is basically over massive fjords with the frozen ocean. So what you can see, all the white in front of the mountain there, is actually the frozen ocean, which only sort of unfreezes for about 6 to 8 weeks a year.
Magic.
That is super cool.
You can see the shadow, the image of the person here. And then just peeling away from the mountain as that height wears down in order to be able to pitch safely and then land on a frozen ocean pretty much.
Is that the Antarctic or the Arctic?
That's the Arctic. So that's north of Alaska and north of Canada, obviously. And the island itself is called Baffin Island, which is the 5th largest island in the world. And that's, as you can see there, that's all frozen ocean, which is probably about, 1.5, 2 meters thick. And then underneath that, you've obviously got all your seals and whales and narwhals and all that cool stuff.
Wow.
Actually, at Baffin Island, we had a big polar bear, probably about 430 kilo polar bear, come into camp at about 3 o'clock in the morning. During that time, it's still sunny. I'll just show you that little polar bear, or a picture of a polar bear.
The little polar bear.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, biggerize it.
Yep.
Dude.
So you can't actually impress upon people how big this animal is. They're upwards of sort of 400 kilo. They can smell you 15 kilometers away. They can dig you out of ice 6 meters deep. They're a bit of a machine. So we had a 308 rifle and a shotgun while we were there with, I guess, bear bangers in it. So basically you want to scare them off first. But anyway, this big fella walks in at like 3 o'clock in the morning. One of the guys gets up to piss. It's like negative 37 degrees. And it almost freezes your wiener off. And he's like, polar bear, polar bear. So we get out of the tent. There's only 3 of us left there after a few people left, 3 or 4 of us. And this polar bear is just there sniffing us and having a look. And unfortunately for us, we were slightly upwind of it. It would have been better if he was upwind of us because we would have got more time with him. Anyway, he kind of saunters off into the sort of abyss. And about 10 minutes later, I said to JD, shit, man, let's grab the rifle, jump on a snowmobile, let's go find this guy. So we spent an hour and a half looking for this polar bear, and we covered probably about 18, 20 kilometers along all the fjords. So he either climbed up a vertical cliff or just disappeared into thin air. And we looked everywhere. We couldn't even find a footprint. And then eventually I find this jagged sort of piss line where the male was pissing while he was walking. So I'm like, stop, we'll have a look around here. And we found 1 foot imprint, which was bigger than my negative 100 size 12 boot. This animal's 450 kilo, wringing wet. Oh, sorry, dry. And you can see exactly where I've been. I weigh 75 kilo. So this thing is so ergonomic that it doesn't even leave footprints. It's insane. Such an insane animal.
Yeah. And it's so cool. And Beck, I know you're a nature girl too. You're right into the nature side of things.
I don't know if I can beat the polar bear story.
No, but like it's just that, well, yeah.
No, look, I appreciate all nature in its genuine native environment where it's living where it should be living, and hopefully that can be something that everyone can experience rather than having to see it in a zoo. So I don't think that it's over yet. I think we've got there's time for those areas to be preserved, which is why I chose the charity I chose today. So yeah, it's but it's about also us as humans really respecting that and making that a higher value in our society. That is a really important thing to value rather than the all the human charities. That's why I don't give to human charities. I give to
Matt,
animals.
Just touching on what Beck's talking about there quickly. A lot of people see extreme sports enthusiasts, I guess, as probably a little bit loose, maybe sort of down the road of more party animals, whatever. But to be honest, it doesn't matter what sport you do. What I find in people is that irrespective of the sport you're doing, people are stoked to be in the place that they're in. like half the reason we do what we do is because we're going to climb into some of the most remote places you can find. We're going to take 6 planes to get to a place where you've got to travel overland in negative 40 degrees to get to a place that not many people see, or travel through jungles or be underwater, or the places that you are so striking. They're so phenomenal. And then to add a group of friends to that and do something stupid is really quite cool. So yeah, you do learn a lot about nature. You learn a lot about animals, water, the earth, everything, wind. It's a fantastic environment.
Yeah, see, that's it too. Like I'm a conservationist too, but perhaps in a more of a, because I like hunting, fishing, and diving like you too, Rob. So like for me, it's not, it's about having something to use. If I can tell actually a really quick, and this isn't just keeping up with the Joneses, it's kind of within the theme of it, because it ticks off on fear, nature, and not that diving's extreme really, but I worked up in the Torres Straits for a couple of years, and when I first started free diving up there, because everyone free dives, you're always out going to getting wet, killing crays and cold trout if you can dig them in. And of course, you get really cocky when you first try something, you get that fear, and then you hit that cockiness stage. I'd imagine it'd be the same with sort of like other sports. I know plenty of pilots, and they go, yeah, you hit this stage at about 50 hours. That's when people, because they start to think, oh, I got this, they know what they're doing. That's when everyone dies. Like if you can get through that window of overconfidence, yeah, you're probably going to be okay. And that small Overton window of overconfidence / stupidity, where there's a rock just in between Thursday Island and Prince of Wales. It's called Hammond Rock, and it sticks like a pinnacle out of some really deep water. Like that's a proper shipping line going through there, and the currents whip through it. And of course, that means fish and fish, because no one goes there. So we're in the lee of this massive rock, and I'm looking down in this beautiful clear water. It was just a brilliant day, and you could see, like one of those few times in the Straits, you could just see straight down like cobalt blue. So I grabbed the dive gear, and the island guy I'm with, Willie Wigness, goes, well, I know. I'm like, he goes, no. There's big bitems is the word for shark. Big bitems here. Like, no. And like, he's an experienced, like he's an island man, proper, really good diver. He's like the Luke Skywalker. And I'm like, nah. Anyway, so stupid Matt, mask on, side of the boat, big step in. You blow your mask, you adjust, you look up. And look, I wouldn't have been in the water 10 seconds, to blow and look up. And with the current coming straight around this rock is a shark coming like a freight train. He heard me hit the water, right? He heard me hit the water. And you guys will get this, especially, because I don't know how much diving you've done, Beck, but like they look at you. And this thing looked at me, like, when because there's still deep when predators are looking at us. And I made eye contact with this shark, like it's coming at me, like it was looking at me. And I was just like, I can't, articulate precisely the language that I used even underwater. That would perhaps be inappropriate for this time. But thank God he was only about 6 foot, so about my height. And but he just came right up and he looked right at me. And as he's going past, he just and kept going. And of course, man, I was absolutely, because this rock, like it sticks, it's and the current had taken me away from the boat, like in that short amount of time. I'm looking at the boat, I'm looking at the rock, I'm looking at the boat, I'm looking at the rock, and the rock's a little bit closer. And I'm telling you, man, Ian Thorpe would not have beaten me to that rock. And there was a ledge about this big, because it's a sheer rock that just sticks right out, man. Like there's nothing on there. Like, you don't even get all that many birds on there, except right on the top. Here's this thing, and I'm like, white as a sheet.
Mate, I'm a keen spearo myself. I'm sure you would have seen a few tiger sharks in your time. I might just quickly show you a quick show I got here. It's a pretty nice little one of a tiger shark. I'm just going to see if I can make that bigger. And this is feeding on a big dead sperm whale. And because it's probably a 4.5 meter tiger, but as you are with animals, you've got to sort of embrace it. And this guy's had a pretty big feed, so he's pretty happy, but he's it's a nice big old girl.
Male or female?
This one's male. Oh, sorry, female, big pardon.
Dude, that is a massive shark.
Yeah.
Did
you see
everyone
back
see
down
his
there.
hand on the fin?
Yes, everybody did.
That's about a 25-meter dead sperm whale. So, there were 3 or 4 tigers, and then below that, about 3 or 4 bull sharks, which I don't often see, but they were quite below the tigers. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was a bull that buzzed me. I'm really. Oh, and Mr. McLean, g'day, Ian. He's a regular follower. Thanks very much for tuning in, Ian. He's made a comment that that's somewhat of an adventure, to be sure, a grand adventure, to be sure. That's somewhat an understatement, but yeah, we did see your hand. Keep going. 25 meters. Where was that?
that was just floating off the continental shelf here. So I've never seen a sperm whale up here in my life, but it was just dead, floating along the coast. There's still blood coming out of its flesh, so I can't imagine it was too old. And then obviously just that ensuing sort of feed that was going on, which I guess in essence makes it a little bit safer to be there because they've all got quite full bellies,
Yeah, that's right. But look, let's dive into some of the other sports that you're keen on, Rob. What you're going here? Okay, we've done the wingsuiting, mate. Ice climbing and motorcycling.
Yeah, I love
Any other footage?
Off-road and do a fair bit of on-road. I'm pretty blessed to live where I live in North Queensland. We've got some of the best riding in the world, honestly. Between heading up into national park, into rainforest areas and then west out towards deserts, you get a pretty diverse range of riding up here. I've been riding for about 35 years, I guess, and sort of do road bike riding and off-road riding. So yeah, definitely get into a bit of that. It is a little bit harder on the body as you get older, but yeah, it's funny. They say that off-road will hurt you and road bikes will kill you. You get one or the other, but obviously there's still a few people hanging around that aren't too bad off.
You got any footage of ice climbing or biking or anything like that? I promise not to tell Traffic Branch.
I do have one little shot of some ice climbing if I can find it.
Right, just to pipe up while Rob's finding his footage. Rob was one of my entrants to the Cairns Adventure Film Festival, which I ran from 2010 to 12, and he would put together this. It was an amateur extreme sports or adventure films. So under 5 minutes was the brief. And the amount of sports that Rob would put footage together in one film was just mind blowing. Like I'm like, oh, here's my friend who's a skydiver and he base jumps, and there he's the hello Lola. This is Lola.
This is my little daughter saying hello.
Hello Lola. and Rob, like the amount of different area. So there was always road bike scooting around the coast road from Port to Cairns, and then off-road, and then paragliding and ice climbing, and it was just never ending. So that's the whole reason I wanted him to be here for this chat.
Well, look, and thank you very much. But Beck, that's you've dug into something that's really interesting and something that's another feather in your cap. So while Rob is digging that up, mate, tell me about how you organised the Cairns Adventure Film Festival. What triggered that idea? What happened? How did it come?
Well, the trigger of that idea is skydivers always have a thing with their events where because the skydive goes for 1 minute, a lot of the time you're filming with a camera on your head, and the only way you can debrief or look at that jump, that 1 minute, is to watch it on the big screen afterwards. So a lot of the big skydiving events will have what they call the day tape, which was you go and put your footage in from your skydive and they edit it into a tape that gets shown at the end of the day when everybody's having a beer at the end of the day when you're having your meal or whatever. And so I just thought, well, why can't we do that with many different sports, extreme sports together? So that's how I met Josh Bond, who recommended me to you. So he's one of the extreme kayakers. And in Cairns, there's such a great variety of sports available. So that was my initial idea, was let's get all those crazy people in one event, all watching their different sports together. So that's where that came from. And yeah, it was a lot of editing, I can say that. I'd love to run it again, but putting it out there, if we've got an editor who wants to do it all for free, then hours and hours.
Mate, Beck's done a fantastic job there in terms of getting a diverse bunch of people to get a whole bunch of footage into her film festivals. It definitely showcases this area. You know, some of the best whitewater rafting, some of the best motocross, some of the best spearing, skydiving, if I'm allowed to say, base jumping. You know, there's some pretty nice stuff around the place. So she's done a fantastic job in showcasing that. I have found one little ice climbing shot if you'd like to see it, Maddie.
Yes.
This is just a shot from Italy, just running up a bit of a cliff there, just a bit of a pan out shot. But I've been lucky enough to sort of been involved in ice climbing over time, and have kind of just kept sort of honing my skills in it. When we were in Baffin Island there, we were sort of climbing some walls that I presume would be 3,500 to 4,000 years old. So when you look into ice that's that old, it's actually not white. It's clear. And I've never looked into ice that old before, where you can see like 1.5 meters into the ice. So you're actually checking out, like, I guess what froze in that period of time, 3,500, 4,000 years ago. And it was just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I got to ask, what sort of stuff did you see?
Oh, you just see, like, could make the colours. You can't explain the colours of some of these places that you are, you know. Just all the different types of blues. We're in a big bowl. I'll drag up a shot of it in a sec, but basically you've got that frozen ocean. You've got mountains that haven't been touched since the time began, and then a massive big sort of glacial system that's probably been there for about 4,000 years. And then you get sections of that glacial system will snap off, smash through the ocean that's frozen, and then create that whole system that starts refreezing and starting again. But I didn't witness any of the big avalanches that were there. We did witness one or two that were pretty amazing. But, you know, you're talking about some of these chunks of ice that are moving might be in excess of, I don't know, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 ton.
Wow.
It's impressive to see.
Yeah, I bet. Look, while you drag us up some more footage, so Rob, find us something else. Tell me about,
He's my poster boy for a reason.
No, Beck, and just, mate, you're not a token, mate. You're a very interesting lady. Tell me about steampunk.
Well, that's my latest project for the last 3 years. So I have an event called Tropical Steampunk, and it's a dress-up theme event. Steampunk is, oh, there we go, steam drunks, yeah, woohoo! So it's a theme that actually started in the early 80s as a sci-fi book series, and it was kind of this idea that someone futuristic goes back to the 1800s and has to kind of produce their futuristic elements, but out of old school items. So it's a really diverse theme in both decor and artworks and costuming. A lot of films. So for instance, Wild West, the film Wild West is very steampunk. There's another film which, oh, there's me. Yeah, that's a Jessica Lynn special. So it's very humans with robotic elements. So it's kind of a really fun theme. And I have an event on 18th or 19th of September, which is coming up. But the lead-in events to that are actually starting next weekend, and they're all upcycled workshops where we're making crafts or costuming elements later on in the year, and we're just trying to build, get people to be creative. Basically, that's my getting people out of their fear. It's quite amazing these days how many people are actually fearful of being creative, or, oh, I'm not creative. It's like everyone is creative in some way or another. They've just categorized that if you don't know how to paint or draw a perfect face or whatever, that you're not creative. So my aim is to get as many CANs or community members involved. And so we've got 16 workshops run by Hayley Gillespie, who's, I hear that you interviewed her not long ago, Matt. And yeah, so we just want to get people involved and sort of build to this amazing event where everyone's trotting around in their costume, top hats and goggles and post-apocalyptic outfits, and being someone else for the night is my catch cry. And yeah, just see what that's like.
You need goggles. It's not steampunk without goggles and a top hat.
They definitely
No
help
goggles.
confidence.
I'm sorry, you're out. It's like trying to be it's like, you know, buying because one day I'm going to get them on to the guys from the 501st, the Stormtrooper guys. Mate, they are super serious about their uniforms. Dude,
mate, fancy dress is all about the uniforms. If you don't turn up in fancy dress, you're kind of the minority. For sure.
Mate, I reckon the SS would have been more lackadaisical at their uniforms than the 504 at first. Like, those guys are like, dude, what's that made out of? Like, you know, they're so serious. I can't wait to get them on. Can't wait to get them on too. But play me some stuff, Rob, and start talking.
Mate, here's a quick shot of just an amazing place. This was that glacier that I was talking about in Baffin Island. So here we have basically, this is the frozen ocean up against this glacial moraine, and all these sections behind it, that glacier feeding back into the ocean. I don't know if you can see what I'm pointing to.
Yes, we can.
That's us 4 or 5 people there about to make our assault on getting up this thing and off to the side of it. When we did jump Broad Peak, this was the mountain back here. That's the highest mountain in there. But we also jumped a mountain to the left, a couple to the right. So we had a little good look at it. But anyway, this is just that area. It's pretty intense. So you can see there's been a previous avalanche just off to our left. So at that time, we felt that was kind of the safest place to climb. But you can see on the left, there's some chunks there that would be in excess of 1,000 ton ready to go. And then, yeah, we make our way up into there. Where we were here, we had temperatures of between about negative 15 degrees and negative 43 degrees. So the coldest place in the world is essentially negative 43 degrees, less wind chill factor. We had some 120 kilometre an hour storms come in there. We managed to build a 22-person igloo, actually, which we all stuck in there for a while. But if you don't have any part of your skin kind of closed up, it tends to get burnt pretty quickly. But I might leave you with just one other quick shot, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yes, keep going.
That's just something down the road here. This is a little bit local to our area.
Oh yeah,
and it's just something pretty nice. Standing up the top left, just getting off now.
Boom.
It may not be a cavernous ice place at negative 43, but it's a pretty stunning location, no doubt. This is about an hour and a half south of Cairns, but just a pretty place to get out and explore.
And we do, like, we take it for granted. We genuinely, well, you know, a lot of us do. We genuinely take it for granted, the fact that we live in, you know, God's own country, and admittedly there's no snow, like you kind of made that, but there's really nothing else you can do. And Cairns is a tourist destination for a reason. I love staying here too. Incidentally, and for me as well, it's the people. And you guys are going to feel all awkward when saying this, but the great thing about Northern Vibe is the reason I really started focusing on this side of things was because there's some really talented, interesting people up here doing some uber cool stuff. So you've got, you know, people jumping out of planes and climbing ice and making awesome costumes and organising events. And you've got the talented Hayley Gillespie. You've got guys like David Hudson. One of my other guests was, and I'm going to do more of the intellectual side of things too, because I find that phenomenally interesting. I get to be self-indulgent. Was Dr. Alan Clough, who's one of Queensland's, arguably one of Australia's leading epidemiologists. And so he studies epidemiology up here. And like, that was a really interesting interview. We didn't cover COVID. He said, Matt, look, I really can't talk much about COVID. People say epidemiologists, they think COVID. He goes, but like the epidemics that he studied is alcohol use, drug use, and suicide. So like it was a kind of sad interview, but like yeah, really, really interesting. And all these people, mate, he likes drinking. He likes drinking at that bar out at Smithfield. Like him and I, like we you know, Alan and I go out there a bit every day. So you know, you could be at the bar and talking to one of Australia's leading epidemiologists, and you know, hanging around with all these other awesome people. And Hayley Gillespie, she's great. David Hudson, who's a incredibly talented guy who's literally strode over the world's stage. That's the great thing about Northern Vibe. If I can get a little bit, it's not just about self-indulgence, like that I get to talk to these people, like I have an excuse to ring them up and go, oh, can you come on my show? And get all geeky and fanboy. It's everyone else gets to see it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you get to see that diverse range of people that live and play.
Yeah. And it's awesome. It really is awesome. And the talent we have up here is genuinely incredible. Like I've had a couple of American friends come up and go, you guys are a town of 180,000 people. Like that's a small hamlet, you know, in most of the places in the United States. But yeah, okay, play me something else, Rob, before we kind of, have you got anything else?
Oh, I got, so what else we got here? Have a quick look at a Beck and myself like to do some jumps on a sand case around the place. And one shot of that is just a mate's landing onto a sand cave where we have a few parties from time to time. So this is just a nice little landing shot of him making a grand entrance onto a small chunk of sand in the middle of nowhere.
Nice.
Woohoo.
Oh yeah, right on there. Nice.
So it's just a nice short shot of, I guess, a Far North Free Fall event that we have each year where we're lucky enough to be able to land on a sand cay out of Mission Beach. Probably one of the most spectacular jumps in the world. To be honest, last year and the year before, we had the world champions in skydive come and join us at the Tully Free Fall, which is a bit pretty, you know, which is a pretty nice thing for such a small club to entertain world champions. So people are traveling sort of from around the world to be able to come on a jump, that little chunk of sand there. It's quite funny.
Anytime people like that come through, one of the things I want to do with Northern Vibe is, because not only do we have amazing people here, we have this steady flow through of incredible people. And like, you know, the newspaper only picks up small amounts of it. No disrespect to them. They just don't know. Anything like that happens. If you're getting someone cool like that in, I want to know about it. Because, you know, I'm getting their butts on Northern Vibe right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Please keep.
We could easily feed you with skydivers every week if you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, yeah, kind of like
it might get a bit.
Look, I never get sick of it,
but we don't want to. But I will say that the renewal of skydiving at Far North Freefall at Tully Skydiving Centre or Tully Drop Zone is outstanding. And the guy who's landing that you just saw on that sand cay, he has driven that new heyday of that skydiving centre, and so has Rob. Rob has a have you got any bouncy castle bits of
I'll have a quick look for that. That's always pretty good. That's a good
yeah
step.
So Rob bought a bouncy castle, okay, for how much? And
we paid $1,000 for it, and the guy couldn't believe anybody would want a
speaking of bouncing.
Oh,
yeah.
That's me.
Hey, while you're finding that, tell me about upcycling.
Okay, well, upcycling is basically, I don't want to, in any of my events, I really don't want to create a bunch of rubbish. So the whole idea with upcycling is using reclaimed materials and repurposing them, which is the new buzzword is upcycling. Okay, so it's about basically using as many reclaimed materials as possible to make something new. So a lot of my costumes that I use for whatever theme event are from the many amazing Cairns op shops that there's so many good options there. And this year, Hayley and I have some awesome ideas for redoing furniture and making costumes out of reclaimed materials, mainly from these op shops or from the buyback shop. So it's about just not creating waste and just buying all your materials from the big name corporate monsters, which we will leave unnamed.
Yeah, so
Anyone goes there and buys a sausage on the weekend, just as a hint. Go Cairns.
and Rob, so $1,000 for a bouncy castle?
I'm going to, while we're having a chat, I'm going to play that video for you. Yeah, $1,000 for a jumping castle, and it had a removable roof. So we were sort of like, wow, this is perfect, because you could sort of put it somewhere and effectively land a base rig through the top, or a skydiving rig through the front. So this is us just setting it up on an undisclosed location and just having a bit of fun with some good people and trying to get parachutes into a jumping castle. Does it bother if there's a song with it?
No.
Oh, here we go.
So this thing has paid for itself 1,000 times over. Just having it there for people to hear and have fun has been so good.
Yes, Rob is wearing a sparkly green dress in that one.
Yeah, you look hot, Rob.
Mate, what happens with this thing is it keeps getting, we put about 300 patches on it, and now we've actually had to just buy a bigger fan to keep it blowing through all the holes. But it's created some fun. And up until this stage, nobody's really even hurt themselves in the least, actually. It's done pretty well. Comparatively
speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. There was a nice bit of footage of a kiteboarder there at the Cays, and we'll give a little shout out to Bretto of Wind Swell Kiteboarding. If anyone wants to learn that, they're a very good carbon neutral sport.
Yeah, they are. And right here in Port Douglas, like Yorkeys Knob, it's a pretty fantastic place to be able to do it. We're definitely blessed in where we can play. That's for sure. Sorry, I'm just going to stop that and get rid of that.
That's okay. Look, I sort of want to keep going, but we're going to have to wrap it up. I am going to get you guys on sometime in the future. I'm getting a bit of love here, so obviously this is another interview that we'll have to do again, especially with some other people. But look, thanks for coming on, and I do look. I feel your pain with the cold too, you know. And this is part bragging, but part empathy. I actually lived in Outer Mongolia for 6 months. And I went out one night, like walked out of my little unit, and it was 38 Celsius below. So, I feel your pain, and I went from
Mongolia would be a super interesting place.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So it was, and I was drunk for most of it, but no, it's Mongolia. That's
keep you warm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I went for a run there actually. Dude, I really should have worn, and I had 3 layers on, you know. It turned out that wasn't enough. But look, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Look, thank you very much for coming on. To all those who've tuned in to Mr. Fry J Fry, rock stars right there. Yeah,